Hello, hello. Great to be here. So, a few years ago, I ran an experiment which turned out to be very interesting and successful. I shared it with only 2 people at the time. And today, the full presentation is dedicated to just that. The experiment is based on Google's patent called Site Quality Score. It is extremely rare to see that Google would define something like quality, helpfulness, value, or something like that. Over here, they define it as users' interest in the website as in direct searches. In a simple way, they're talking about brand search demand. If we're going to look at the graph that comes directly from the patent, basically it's the most primitive, simplest process that you can think of. They would take any source as a target, then they would look what are these actual brand searches that are coming to the site. It can be a mix of misspellings, key terms, plus the brand, and so on and so forth. Then they simply count them, and then they simply say, the more you have, the higher is your quality. So I thought it would be very interesting to kind of run a further experiment. And just to say quickly, I start with a very small sample. I start specifically with the Estonian target audience. As a quick side note, if you're running experiments, I suggest you to start with a very small web size. So, for example, countries like Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia is a perfect target. The Google's algorithms are very outdated, and you can very, very easily see what's going on in terms of can you move something by throwing just a few things at it? These sites I am not affiliated with. If any of you are working with them or somehow connected, sorry for running tests on your sites, but there's nothing personal over here. So what I do here is basically just imitate a brand search demand for these target sites for just 1 month. After a month, I can see that there is some kind of increase that I'm seeing for the top 3 sites. Then one of them has lost, let's say, positions or standings, and then there is no change. If we're going to take a closer look, over here you can see the traffic and position comparison from left to right, so basically before and after. This is one of the examples. This is another one. And then there is, let's say, the third case where we just see the query coverage that just starts to go up naturally. And then the site that lost its positions, this is how it looked before I ran the test. I'm showing it here so you can get the idea that it's basically like an EMD without any links or any standing or anything significant. I learned my lesson here because basically, due to the fact it being an EMD, I kind of let's say, inflated this behavior, which most likely caused the drop. This is a site where we didn't have any changes. In terms of stats, you can see they're very similar in terms of basically tiny little sites that just rank just because they're there. This site survived this experiment, and the difference is that we just sent way less traffic by being, let's say, way more soft about it. So my first conclusion by looking at all of this is that it clearly does something, but I wasn't really sure what exactly is going on. So for the next round, I am taking US-based sites. We're going specifically for locksmiths. Then we're going for tree removal services. And as a quick, let's say, target mini campaign, I also take a few Estonian sites. I take a few of the lessons that I got from the previous round of experimenting, and I was pretty confident that we can do something significant over here. The result is that we have almost all of them as winners, and a few sites, or specifically the 4 ones, where we just didn't see any changes at all. If we take a closer look, this is the kind of recurring pattern that starts to appear. After just 1 month, we see either changes in traffic, or most likely we're seeing changes in the keyword coverage that starts to appear throughout the hrefs. And so this is one of the examples. This is another one. And this is a very common recurring theme. This is basically, let's say, kind of something I'm hinting at over here, that this is the key effect of increasing your brand searches. So you can see keyword coverage goes up, another case of that, and then another case of that. When it comes to the 4 sites that did not have any impact, or we didn't see any improvements, I really tried to analyze to understand what's this issue, like why is that happening. The only clear pattern that I could identify is that they have very tiny amount of contents. As these are local sites, you can imagine some kind of WordPress blog with a homepage, and then accidentally there is like hello world page, then there is contact us and privacy policy. So that's kind of how those sites look like. To me, what it seems that there is just nothing for Google to pick up and push into the SERPs, which is why they stay basically neutral and nothing really changes. For the next round, I go with global sites. Basically blogs or something that has a multi-location, multi-state type of positioning. And over here, basically, the very similar pattern appears. We have pretty good results. If we take a closer look, you can see there's a significant change in keyword coverage. And then, again, the repeating pattern. Keywords, at least the way Ahrefs spots them, they keep going up over here and over here. When it comes to the sites that did not have any wins, unfortunately, I couldn't find a clear signal why this happens. This, to be very honest with you, bothered me a little bit because we clearly have lots of contents over here. There's like thousands of pages that they have. There were some signals for, let's say, there is no social media, or lots of contents are outdated, or let's say there's something technically broken with the site. But I couldn't see a clear correlation because some of the winners do have the same problems as well. So unfortunately, that's as far as I could, let's say, take the lessons out of this specific round. For the last round, I am going with the lawyers that are based in US. And here I'm handpicking specifically the ones that are ranking on page 2 or lower. And based on Ahrefs data, they don't have any brand searches at all. For this round, as I was putting out the presentation, I realized I probably should hide the site names, specifically because these are lawyers. And also, this round didn't really go so well. Over here, you can see we have a little bit a mix of results. And as I did, after 1 month, as I started to study what actually has happened, I realized, first of all, I messed up a few things from my configuration, but then also there were just things that I was not aware of. One of the most valuable lessons that I have learned is that the domain name is actually not the brand name. Because these are lawyers, I had cases here where the domain name is, for example, abccompany.com. But behind this website, there's just one person whose name is, let's say, Bob Jones. And this is the only lawyer that operates behind this site. So then what happens most likely is that because he works in this industry for like 10 years or more, because people know about him and they went out to find his site, they would search for his first and last name, not for the abccompany.com. Then Google learns that this website is not about ABC Company, it's actually first and last name. To amplify this problem even further, I realized that some of these websites don't even have the domain name mentioned anywhere in the titles. So it would be something like ABC Company, but if you look through the titles, it's Bob Jones, get my quote, here are the laws, and etc. They never even mention the domain name as the brand name. So of course I misconfigured, let's say, this setting without really being aware of this. Then we have lots of cases like this where a SERP has, let's say, for example, there would be green lawyers, lawyers for green help lawyers, legal help for green, and etc., etc., etc. So whenever I'm sending a kind of search for green lawyers or legal help, all of these sites are coming up, and that SERP is extremely volatile. Everything is always shifting and moving around. And of course, by me sort of kind of, let's say, enforcing this synthetic behavior, it's very easy for Google to spot that something unusual is happening, because if they're testing all of these brands against each other, for a query, like who is actually meant to rank for it, and then I send something, let's say, very fixated, I don't think it has a really good impact. And lastly, the brand spell variation is a really important part, especially if you're running these kinds of campaigns. From my side, this is where I really messed up the most. I was just lazy to set it out in a detailed way. It's just very time consuming. And I did a very minimal thing. But then it was very clear that this actually has a negative impact, or it is not as efficient. And so to give you a quick summary for kind of my conclusions from this experiment, initially, when I read the patent, I thought that it would be a kind of easy way to rank the sites, which is why I took the Estonian sites, and I had, let's say, some cases there where by just sending the brand searches, the site goes from page 2 to top 1. And I was like, this is like an easy cheat code. In smaller web sizes, like I mentioned, that can happen. But if we're talking about USA or the tier 1 countries or tier 1 algorithms, the effect there is different. What seems to happen is they kind of send more trust to the brand, and now they decide, okay, because the people are trusting this website, we should use their contents to serve more requests. If you're familiar with content campaigns, semantic content networks, you can see how these things go kind of hand in hand. If you provide content that is meant to serve the users, and then you have this extra signal, it just amplifies or sort of speeds up this flywheel effect. From here, basically, you all have, let's say, 2 options to go with. It's either doing a bot traffic by imitating the brand searches, or going the real way. From my side, of course, I'll recommend you to do the real brand, let's say, demand generation and brand awareness. It will be much safer for the long run. But I understand that in some of the industries, it will be very hard to do. And for that reason, you might have to rely on the bot traffic. I don't really recommend doing it as like the holy solution, but if you want to do it, when it comes to real traffic configuration, I believe there is lots of ways to do it. A few simple ones is, of course, you should be mentioning yourself or recommending yourself through places like Quora, Reddit, social medias, and so on and so forth. What I found to be really efficient, specifically for things like, let's say, SaaS or more like legitimate type of services, you can find an influencer and then just allow them to use the product. Do not promote it, do not market it. Just mention that. Then you go into the comments and ask like, hey, what was that tool or that service or that website? Then they reply to you and then they pin that comment. This becomes the most innocent way to gain traction, because people will search, they will read, and if they're curious, you have the actual realistic brand traffic generation. Here are a few of case studies that we have from an existing website where we are performing these campaigns. And then there is a brand new site launch. The main logic over here, we're following the key 3-step, fairly simple process. First of them is we have the real brand searches that are coming from real people. These people are very interested in this niche. They are searching and researching different topics. They would check competitors, including us. So there's a very, let's say, strong effect from that part. Then we have semantic content networks, which is based on Corai's framework. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. And then the final part is visual semantics. What we do here is simply present our content and ourselves in a more unique way, trying to explain things not with just words, but also with visual elements, providing more functionalities and more, let's say, elements that allow more engagement. With that said, if you liked my speech, I have a YouTube channel. This QR code links directly to the YouTube channel. If you're allergic to YouTube, you can check out my personal website, which is at serp.science. And thank you very much.